Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. They got out, walked up to the front door, and started making out before going inside. After receiving this surveillance footage, I instructed the investigator to compile it for me and let me know when he was done. 20 years of trust was shattered. Dear listeners, today we take a look at a story of betrayal and deceit by a wife of over 20 years as she goes out on her marriage for her fun. We are racing towards our first 2,000 subscribers. Your one click to subscribe us would go a long way for us. Thanking you in advance. Let's get on with the story. My name is Ted, and I'm 56 years old. I own a small automobile garage. I was married to Kathy, who was 52 when we separated. I don't want my family to know what's happening in my marriage right now. I recently found out that my wife of 20 years is cheating on me. I discovered this by accident. Kathy, a nurse practitioner, was called in for an overnight shift. I couldn't reach her, so I called the hospital. They told me she left a few hours ago. That didn't make sense. Why would she tell me she had to work when she'd left hours ago? I decided to drive by her work to see if her car was there, but it wasn't. I continued driving around the area, but I couldn't find her car. I called her again, but nothing. It went straight to voicemail, so I left a message. I'm trying not to panic, but there's this sick feeling in my stomach. My wife has never kept anything from me, not even when we were dating in college. I'm concerned because if something is bothering her, she would tell me. I'm not sure what to do, but I know I need to find out what's going on. I continued to drive around, looking for her car, but I still couldn't find it. So, I went home and waited for her to call me. At about 7 in the morning, she called and apologized, saying she had a busy night at the hospital. That's why she didn't call me back. I thought to myself, she's lying, I know she is. But I just said it's okay, we'll talk when you get home. At about 8 a.m., my wife gets home and starts to tell me this story about a patient that needed around-the-clock care. I couldn't pay attention because I knew she was lying to me as I continued to listen. All I could think about was how to find out why she was lying to me. After we talked for a bit, she went to clean up, and eventually, she went to bed. I had to go to work. Working for the city meant I couldn't just take off to track her movements. If she was cheating, I wanted to know. During my lunch break, I called a few private investigators. It was expensive, but these guys were reputedly good, and I didn't have time to keep trying to follow her. Living in Georgia, I began researching divorce laws. I didn't want a divorce, but if she was cheating, I wanted out. Fortunately, we didn't have any kids. She had experienced 3 miscarriages during our marriage. This wasn't the marriage I signed up for, not the woman I married 20 years ago. But I needed to find out for sure. The private investigator said he could find out what she was doing and who she was seeing, but it would take time. I told him I would think about it and get back to him. When I got home at around 5 p.m., I found my wife in the bedroom talking to someone. I didn't know who, but she seemed upset. I went into the kitchen, started making dinner, and after a few minutes, she joined me. She explained that she was talking to her best friend about personal issues. She had to work that night, so I made her a plate for dinner. We talked a bit more, and she left for work. Later, around midnight, I called the hospital, trying to reach her. They said she left about 30 minutes ago to get something to eat. It struck me, I had made her dinner. That's when I decided to hire the private investigator. I didn't call her cell phone after calling the hospital. The next morning, on my way to work, I called the private investigator and gave him my credit card information over the phone. Then, I planned to go and see the private investigator after work, armed with pictures and additional information. After work, I provided the private investigator with all the details and signed some paperwork. I made it clear that I wanted him to start right away. In the first couple of nights of surveillance, the private investigator informed me that my wife's car didn't move, which was a bit surprising, but I knew it was just a matter of time. A few nights later, I received a call from the private investigator. He had some video footage of my wife going into someone's house. He mentioned that she seemed suspicious. When she walked out to her car, she would look around before getting in, as if checking if anyone was watching. Strangely, she appeared to change clothes in her car, switching into workout attire. According to the investigator, she drove about 10 minutes away from the hospital to a house late at night. It seemed like she had a key, as she would drive up and go right in. She stayed there for 45 minutes to an hour, and when she left, no one accompanied her to the door. The private investigator said she would then drive back to the hospital, change back into her work clothes, and go back in, which turned out to be her lunch break. However, I told him I needed more evidence, something showing that she was involved with another man intimately. As horrible as it sounded, I needed concrete proof. The private investigator assured me that he would continue efforts to gather more video footage. A few nights later, he called me back with more footage, revealing that my wife had met a man at an all-night diner. According to the investigator, she walked in, kissed the guy at a table, and sat down. He noted that she must have taken an extended lunch break since she was gone for almost an hour before heading back to work. However, this time, things didn't unfold the same way. After they ate, the private investigator said they both got into separate vehicles and went back to his place. They got out, walked up to the front door, and started making out before going inside. After receiving this surveillance footage, I instructed the investigator to compile it for me and let me know when he was done. Over the next few days, I started getting my affairs in order. I wanted to ensure that everything was taken care of so that I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I met with my attorney and informed him about the situation. He began helping me file for divorce and provided advice on the next steps. A few days later, the private investigator called and informed me that he had the video footage put together. I went over to his office, and he showed me the footage. Throughout all this, I hadn't told my wife anything or acted any differently. It's worth noting that we had a dead bedroom, and I wondered why. When my lawyer asked me if I wanted to go for spousal support, I was taken aback. I asked him about it, and he pointed out the significant income disparity between my wife, a nurse practitioner earning almost $100,000 a year, and myself, making about $55,000 a year. My attorney suggested going for spousal support, and despite my skepticism, I decided to give it a try. A few weeks later, we included the spousal support request in the divorce papers. When my wife was served with the divorce papers, she was shocked and called me to ask what was going on. I told her, "I think you know what's going on." She inquired if I had someone following her, and I admitted that I did. Once she realized I was aware of her infidelity, she apologized and suggested marriage counseling, but I declined everything she offered, considering it all to be insincere. I never asked her why she cheated. It did not matter. The dead do not question their killers why they were killed. She killed my faith and our marriage. It does not matter anymore. I moved out and got my own apartment. The house was hers, a gift from her father before we were married, and I didn't want it. However, I pursued spousal support during the divorce hearing. Despite my ex-wife's attorney attempting to have the spousal support claim thrown out, the judge denied the request, and I was awarded spousal support for the next 6 years at a rate of $900 per month. I was surprised that I got anything. She was going to pay for her deceit for the next 6 years, and I will rub it on her face every month. After the divorce hearing, I became a free man. I never heard from or saw my ex-wife again. In the following weeks, the private investigator and I kept in touch to some extent. It turned out that the guy my ex-wife had an affair with was a police officer who was also married. During the times my ex-wife went to his place, his wife was away on business. When she returned, she discovered the affair and shot him in her rage. He survived, and she is awaiting trial for the incident. Since then, I received my first alimony payment of $900. It seems this turned out to be an expensive mistake on her part. I suppose it's true what they say, you have to pay to play. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.